Dear David is a film released in 2023 by BuzzFeed, and it's based on a series of tweets released in 2017 by then employee and artist Adam Ellis, where he describes a real-life haunting experience he was going through. This film is terrible for a number of reasons, and it's not just a bad film which has gotten negative reviews across the board. It, to me, almost feels like an attack on the character of a former employee. The original creator of the story and the tweets, Adam Ellis, had no real part in the production whatsoever. He wasn't even paid for it. Yet the film depicts him and the supposed true story that he went through. And the way they go about it, it really makes him look like a knob. Hey, I'm Todd Boyer, and recently for a video, I watched every single film that BuzzFeed has ever made. Over the past couple of years, they've moved away from YouTube and started working on serious film productions, TV shows, documentaries, you name it. My focus for this video is watching every single narrative-based film that they had released so far, and the one that intrigued me most was Dear David. My favorite genre of film is horror. I definitely prefer more of a goblin ghoul, you know what I'm saying? Like a real creature film. I'll dabble in a haunting, you know, that's cool. I dabble. And while I do think haunting films, especially in recent years, have been done to death, I think there's always room in the genre for a new and engaging and interesting take on it. And let me tell you, this film was new and engaging and interesting, but yeah, you know, definitely not for the right reasons. But before we talk about the film itself, I think it's important to talk about the original source material and the creator, Adam Ellis himself. You know, there's a lot of context here that we gotta understand before getting into it. While on the surface, it seems completely insane to make a film based around a tweet, with a little more context, it does make some sense. You know, a little bit more sense. This is not even the first time a film's been made based off a tweet. I believe the first instance of that goes to 2020's Zola. I haven't seen this film, but apparently it's really bloody good. It's gotten good reviews across the board. It was also distributed by A24. Not that that means anything, but they've got a really good track record. So the premise of basing a film around a tweet isn't unheard of, and also it has been done successfully. So again, Adam Ellis was a comic artist who worked at BuzzFeed, and he worked there for a little over 4 years. You may recognize his work. His art style is pretty recognizable and unique to him, I'd say. I definitely recognized it. And in that period, while he worked at BuzzFeed, he was pretty disliked on the internet, specifically regarding his art. People thought of it as repetitive, lazy, and cringy. I saw him described as kind of being like a millennial Jim Davis who made Garfield. If you were on the internet at the time, you probably would remember this. I know I did, but other than that, I didn't really know dick or balls about him. Pretty much everything I know about him, I've learned over the last couple of weeks. So, you know, if I get anything wrong or you've got some extra context for me, please let me know in the comments or whatever. I also, you know, don't speak for him on anything in this. I'm going to be speculating a little bit in this video, and I don't want you to get confused. Anything that is his words, I'll put the context of the tweet up on the screen. He was also quite known for hitting back at the hate that he received. He definitely wasn't afraid to address things directly. Anyway, in August of 2017, he made a tweet. So my apartment is currently being haunted by the ghost of a dead child, and he's trying to kill me. If you were to read this Collider article, you would see that the tweet got 61 million retweets and 73.9 million likes. Wow. But if you were to read the real tweet itself, you would see that it got 61,000 retweets and 73.9 thousand likes. You know, it's still a lot. They might need to fix that one. Now, when we talk about the film, we will be following along with the tweets a bit, but I think for added context, I'll just do the beginning of the story. The first time I saw him, I was experiencing sleep paralysis and saw a child sitting in the green rocking chair at the foot of my bed. He had a huge misshapen head that was dented on one side. I did my best to draw it. I will say out the gate that I think this is like a really good design for a horror character. I think he's done really well here. Or, I mean, you know, the story's real though. The story's real. But I think the design is neat and intriguing. You know, how that kid get bumped, you know what I'm saying? For a while he just stared at me, and then he got out of the chair and started shambling towards the bed. I couldn't move because I was paralyzed. I have sleep paralysis fairly often. It sucks. Right before he reached my bed, I woke up, screaming. I had another dream a few nights later where I was in a library and a girl came up to me and said, "You've seen Dear David, haven't you?" I was like, "Who?" And she said, "Dear David, you saw him." She continued, "He's dead. He only appears at midnight. You can ask him 2 questions if you said Dear David first." Then she added, "But never try to ask him a 3rd question, or he'll kill you. We'll get more into the story a little later on, but I think we can safely say that this is an intriguing premise. And for months, he would constantly update on his Twitter how the haunting itself was manifesting, and he would let people engage and interact with the story. He'd take suggestions on what to do next. Now, fans of the original story would know that it came to an abrupt end in early 2018. This kind of coincided with around the time that Adam Ellis left BuzzFeed to pursue a solo career. So if you're not aware of how companies like BuzzFeed operate, depending on your contract, while working there, they own the rights to any creative works you make, whether it was on the company time or your own time. Ex-employees of BuzzFeed have talked about this in the past, and Adam Ellis kind of seemingly confirms this was the case for him as well in this tweet, where he confirms that BuzzFeed owned the rights for Dear David outright. They didn't need to purchase the rights from him. Of course, I think this would imply that the events of Dear David are fictional. Sorry to the folks out there who believed. I don't think a company can own your real life experience, unless I'm wrong about that. Also, ex-employee of the company and full-time believer Ryan Bergara kind of confirmed on Twitter once, when asked why they never investigated Dear David for an episode of Unsolved, he responded with a picture of baloney. So, there you go. I'm gonna be honest, when I first saw this, I thought this was a picture of Devon. So I didn't know what it meant. I had to reverse Google image search the picture to see that it was baloney. But yeah, the man never disappoints. I love Ryan Bergara. I love his integrity. But at the same time, I do admire Mr. Ellis's dedication to storytelling, because at the end of the day, it was a story that was enjoyed by so many. There's been speculation over the years that maybe a disagreement over the rights was an impacting factor in Adam Ellis' departure from BuzzFeed. And if this is the case, I think rightfully so. I don't think a company should be able to own, creative material that you make in your spare time, but that's just me. And we don't really know the ins and outs of the whole situation. We don't know it played out like that. But interestingly, this is not the first time that his work has been adapted on screen. A short film was released in 2020 called Keratin, which was almost a shot-for-shot remake of a comic that he made in 2018. It involves him taking a nail clipping and planting it and growing a whole new human. But what's so interesting about this whole thing is that he didn't give them any kind of permission to use his work to make this short film. They only came to him after they made it to ask him to promote it. He only found out about this film once it started winning awards. So he asked them to stop screening it, and they didn't. But the reason I bring this up is because he said this regarding it: "The comic they stole from me is deeply personal to me, maybe the most personal comic that I've ever made. I drew it shortly after I left my day job because of disputes over ownership of my personal work. This comic is about self-care, reinvention, and personal growth." Which kind of leads into the idea here, his day job was BuzzFeed. Maybe it's about him leaving BuzzFeed because of rights disputes over Dear David. Which is an absolute crazy amount of irony that the work he made about feeling like his work got stolen then got stolen. That being said, I don't want to say that all the thoughts he has towards Dear David being made into a film are negative. I saw a couple of tweets where it seems like he was pretty keen for it to be made into a film. He first mentioned it in mid-2018 after his resignation. He's got like a billion tweets here. There's definitely stuff that I've missed, so again, if I've missed any context on anything, please let me know in the comments, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. But as I said earlier, he seemingly hasn't really had any hand in the production of the film itself, let alone had any control in the story once he left BuzzFeed. His most recent tweet about the film as of making this was about how it was nominated the 6th worst film of 2023. He doesn't seem to be in low spirits about that. Little side note, we might be talking about what was number 1 on that list in an upcoming video, but don't tell anyone's secret. Shh, don't tell anyone. But anyway, that's what I really want to talk about here is the movie. Because for me, it feels like that they missed the point completely of what made the original work actually good. Because I've read it now. I didn't read it at the time. I've read it now, and I do think it is an engaging story. I think it would have been more engaging if I was there for it at the time, but still, it's pretty good. And of course, because there was no ending to the story, they've had to make an ending themselves, and it is bad. So full spoilers for the film ahead. Don't say I didn't warn you. And while it is a horror movie, because we are on YouTube, I can't put a lot of the spooky scary stuff in, but there will be some little spooky scary stuff, so just be prepared, okay? I warned you, alright? But it's not gonna be bad. We'll all hold hands, but not with me. Don't touch me, don't come near me. Now, of course, a film like this has got to start by saying that it is based on true events. Because of course it does, because, it's It's definitely true. It cuts to a convenience store in 1996 called Fred's Groceries, which now has internet. They're having a conversation about how in the future everyone's gonna love the internet, including their son David, who's in the basement on the internet right now, thus killing any mystery about the character right out the gate. I don't believe the original story ever even ended up getting into the details about who David is, but the movie right out the gate is like, yeah, it's a kid from 1996. He's here. This is him. This is David. This is him. That's him. This kid, David, is uploading pictures onto the internet and getting bullied for them. Okay. Are they making a parallel to something here? I don't know. Damn, the internet is a dark place. I'm glad that none of that would ever happen in the year of 2017. Meet Adam Ellis, resident of 2017 New York, as he walks to the BuzzFeed office. As he walks, you may notice that social media is following him because he's chronically online. I can't relate to that. What's really interesting to me in these opening credits is that the real Adam Ellis is not credited anywhere. It feels really weird that the story is credited to two people who are not him. Like, surely you could put him in this section too. It's his story. He gets to the BuzzFeed office, which looks as soulless as you would imagine, when he starts seeing the hate he's receiving and starts typing a response to it.
If you feed the trolls, they will grow in power and destroy you.
Don't feed the trolls. In this scene, we are introduced to his co-workers, Evelyn and Norris. We're also introduced to his boss, Bryce, who is played by Justin Long. He just read an article about someone who's been in a coma for 21 years. That's crazy. Damn. Now, Adam is at risk of losing his job. While he's relatable AF, his reach is super lame. One thing I really do think that they nailed in this film is the atmosphere at BuzzFeed. Like how his co-workers act and speak to each other, I find really funny.
My top 10 Buffy episodes and what your favorite says about you would totally slay. Slayer?
Yes, I am dead. I'm so dead.
It's really cringy, but like in a very deliberate, self-aware way, so I give it points for that. Justin Long and the actor for Norris especially are like really funny. Anyway, Adam has to find a way to improve his viewership, otherwise he will be fired. Now, again, because this is based on a true story, is the implication here that the real Adam Ellis was at risk of getting fired at the time? Because it seems like they're implying that because, as you'll see later on in the film, there was no real reason to include this aspect. We're then introduced to Adam's boyfriend. Their relationship is not great because Adam is very closed off and refuses to say I love you. Really slamming the poor guy here. The film then cuts to two teenage boys who are catfishing people on the internet, just acting like normal teenagers.
We're blocked.
They get into a chat room with a mysterious person, Dear David. Now, obviously, this part is not in the original story. The whole story originally was told in first person. But look, this is a movie. They gotta add stuff. We can't expect it to be a one-for-one the entire way through. That's not how stuff works. So whenever I'm being critical on it, being like, man, that's not like the story, I'm not meaning it in that way. I'm more meaning it as I think the original story maybe did this better. Anyway, the chat room rules are no bullying, no bad language, and don't ask more than 2 questions. So of course they break every rule and then David threatens to kill them. The kid who was typing ends up getting killed by David that night. David kind of shoves his arm down the kid's throat and then he urinates on himself. I don't feel like they needed to add that. That I thought was a weird touch. Meanwhile, Adam is drunk and working from home and he begins to respond to the trolls. Now, if I'm wrong about anything here, please feel free to correct me. I know Adam has a bit of a history with replying to negative comments, but I think maybe the film takes it to another level here. You know, again, correct me if I'm wrong. So as an example, a response that Adam made to someone in real life that got him a lot of negativity. You're getting a salary while better artists are struggling? Is that my fault? I earned my spot. Focus on your $5 DeviantArt commissions. Obviously that's a bit mean. And I think the movie is referencing this post when Adam replies to someone with this tweet. Anyone paid you to draw? Didn't think so, fuckface. And then he proceeds to tell the person to DIAF, which we all know means die in a fire. And then he directs his followers to send death threats to the individual. You know, let me know if that's not dramatization. And this is where he gets a follow from the Dear David account. So this whole aspect here of David horning Adam because he sees him to be a cyberbully is something completely created by the filmmakers here. Feels like what they've done here is taken a real-life trait of Adam Ellis, being his response to criticism online, ramped it up to 11, and then use that to portray him in a negative way in a story that he made. This is why, to me, it feels like they're really twisting his narrative into a personal attack on him. And not only this, they've made him emotionally distant, they made him an alcoholic, they've made him someone who is completely comfortable sending people death threats.
I should drink and post more often.
And we're not even 20 minutes in. Now, obviously, when you have a large platform and audience, I do believe that you have to be careful with how you use that. There is a responsibility behind having that. Shout out to Uncle Ben. Can't just be throwing out the big DIAF willy-nilly, But also, in saying that, in the film, he was defending himself from a homophobic remark. Like, again, it doesn't make his actions okay, but you think David could have found a better target here. Like, surely there's a worse person out there. If I wrote a horror story and then they turned it into a story about my Baldur's Gate 3 addiction of 2023, I would be livid. That's just me. Adam wakes up in the night and he sees his rocking chair is rocking. Notably here, the chair is a lot more dramatic looking than the real life chair. Fair enough, this chair looks shit. When he's walking around, he reads a HuffPost article about that kid that died just, a couple scenes earlier. BuzzFeed acquired HuffPost in 2020 and they fired a bunch of stuff. Don't worry about it, alright? That's just a minor detail. Don't even worry about it. There's also some random spooky, street activities going on. Adam ends up just playing video games and going to bed. Then he awakes. And now he's in a wonky room. I really like the wonky room. It's like a wonky version of his room. It's kind of there to represent his sleep paralysis, sleep deprived state. My only complaint about the wonky room is that I think maybe they could have made it a little wonkier. Maybe make the walls shift around a little bit or the furniture. But still, I like this. I think it's a cool idea. Anyway, we get like a 1-second jump scare of David and that's about it. Bloody boo. It is after this that we see the first tweet that Adam makes. Now, notably here, you will see that this tweet is very different from the actual first tweet he made, and we'll get back to that a little bit later. Adam goes to work, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but in all the scenes on his desk, you will notice there is a bottle of whiskey. Now, I don't know a lot of workplaces that'll let you just have spirits out on your desk. Maybe it's a thing in other places, I don't know. I don't know if they're saying, wow, BuzzFeed is a really fun and chill place to work, or if they're saying, Adam is an alcoholic. But while he's sitting at his desk, he sees a weird woman go into a room. So he follows the weird woman, and he gets transported to a very familiar looking convenience store in the 90s. And this woman just drops some hot Dear David lore for him, telling him about the questions and stuff like that. Now, in the original story, this takes place in a dream at his house, and the woman is a child, and the convenience store is a library. Not a criticism, just pointing out what's different. He then gets transported to David's computer room, but then the woman from before jump scares him and he wakes up in his office. He then asks his friend to come over and hang out a bit that night because he's afraid he is being haunted. They hang out a bit and she leaves. Adam ignores calls from his boyfriend who is looking after his sick mother because he's a dick. He then starts typing out the original tweet from the real life thread.
No, people think I'm nuts.
But then he doesn't post it. Which, wait, hang on. Already posted about it earlier in the film, mere minutes ago. Did they forget? Was this a change they made in editing? Are they stupid? Am I stupid? Now also, the original tweet, my apartment is currently being haunted by the ghost of a dead child, doesn't make any sense in this context. He has no reason to think that the apartment is being haunted. 50% of the hauntings have happened outside of the apartment. He may as well tweet that the BuzzFeed office is haunted. Anyway, he goes back to sleep and then wakes up in wonky room and he sees his best friend David just chilling out in his chair. Here Adam asks his first question, who are you? Before waking up. So there's two things that I want to say about this scene, and the first regards the original source material. So in the original story, Adam asks all three questions at once. Dear David, how did you die? Dear David, what happened in the store? And who pushed the shelf? So for the rest of the story, the rest of the Twitter thread, Adam is scared that David could kill him at any moment. However, in the film, they play it differently. They spread the questions out throughout the entire film. Now, I think this was done for two reasons. The first being, wow, what a silly guy. Why would he ask all three questions at once? What an idiot. He was told not to do that, you goose. The second one being that I think they thought it might add another layer of tension throughout the film. However, I would say out of anything, tension is the thing that the film does worst. I think in terms of still visuals, some of which I'll put on the screen now, I think it does really well. They have some legitimately scary imagery. However, when you pair this with the pacing and the sound design and the structure, it really doesn't work. I would say they create zero tension whatsoever. The still images, I think, are scarier than the film itself. Hell, I think the trailer was scarier than the film. Now, going back to the whole question thing, I think in regards to the original work, rushing through the whole questions thing is probably one of the best things it does. You know, the whole thing about, don't ask a ghost too many questions or it's gonna get you, that is really been done to death. I would say it's pretty typical ghost story stuff. And the tension of the fact that he already asked all the questions before the story even begun is where the tension is created. Any moment he could get bloody done in by this ghost. And that's what kept people coming back, and also kept people engaging in the story because they were trying to save him. For example, they made this poll and it was asking questions about what he should do. And out of the 3 options, by a landslide, people wanted him to do the option which had him protecting himself rather than putting him in any more danger than he was currently in. They didn't want him to communicate, they wanted him to block it out. Anyway, his neighbors move out, so he moves upstairs in an attempt to escape the ghost. Again, stupid, because he knows the ghost isn't haunting his apartment. He already knows that the ghost is in the, in the social media and following around on the street and shit like that. He saw it at work. A major aspect in the original story revolves around his cats. He'd take lots of pictures of them and the fact that they would always gather around the front door of his new apartment every night at midnight. In the film, they really brush over this aspect. Again, they choose to create no tension here whatsoever. So he also sees a shadow on the other side of the peephole, and then he opens the door and takes Polaroid pictures of the doorway, in which there's like an empty nothingness on the other side, but only in the pictures. They create no tension here, and they really cram it all in into the one scene, even though in the original work, it takes place over the course of a week. They really cram it all in this one scene, so the filmmakers can add their own original work later on in the film, which is a huge shame here because I think it could have been a really creepy slow burn. Anyway, a terrified Adam hides under his covers and then rapidly begins tweeting out his story on Twitter because that's a normal response you would have when you're afraid of a ghost. Rush under the covers and tweet. Again, weird he's doing this because earlier in the film, we saw that he already wrote a tweet. When he comes into the office the next day, the boss at BuzzFeed says that Adam's new story is a huge success. People love it, and Adam needs to make more.
So that story is actually happening.
It's totally happening. It's rad, too. I like how you're bringing that back.
Side note, if they made a comedy film taking place in the BuzzFeed office, starring Justin Long and Norris, I would watch the hell out of that. That would be so bloody good.
Doris, go ahead.
Top 10 reasons why Dawson from Dawson's Creek is a little bitch boy.
Ooh, the word bitch might be
Too much.
They do the poll bit that I mentioned earlier, and they reworded a bit, so the winning option was for them to perform an exorcism. So they salt the floor, burn some sage, pour some holy water around. What takes me out of it in this scene is how unserious Adam is taking all this now. Maybe it's a take on how quickly people change their values when achieving success on social media. Maybe I'm giving it too much credit there. In my opinion, it doesn't work for the plot. That night, David comes in as Mist, and Adam asks his second question. He receives no answer to this and is bashed over the head. But this time, he set up Alexa to capture the sounds, and he actually successfully captures, audio evidence. He should post that, but he doesn't. He doesn't post it for some reason. This is where the film really starts taking some liberties. Adam's boyfriend approaches him over the fact that Adam has an active Grindr account. But Adam assures him that it's a catfish. But when he goes to prove this, he sees that he actually does have the Grindr app on his phone. He also sees that he's been messaging people. This is such a weird detail to add, and in my opinion, completely unnecessary. So the ghost of David is running this account. In my opinion, this is the scariest part of the movie. The idea of a child logging onto Grindr. But the further implications of this are also weird. Let me know if this is a bit of a stretch, but if we are to believe that this is based on a true story, then it seems to me that the movie is implying that this happened to the real Adam Ellis, that he really did have an active Grindr account on his phone while he was dating his boyfriend. The implication there being that he was cheating on him and blamed it on a ghost. Weird thing to say about an ex-employee. But also maybe that's too much of a stretch, you know, maybe I'm reading into things a bit much here. It just feels weird to me that they would do that. Again, in my opinion, there's no reason for them to have this scene. They had set up enough reasons for them to break up. They didn't need to add this, but they do break up in this scene. Then we get our one and only Adam Ellis cameo. Now, you wouldn't notice if you didn't already know about this. I, on my first watching, did not notice. I had to see it on a BuzzFeed article that he was actually in the film. They literally made him a background extra in a bar. You think that they could have maybe given him like a Stan Lee style barista cameo or something like that. Maybe the real Adam didn't want that. Adam at home starts doing more ghost investigating, but his heart's not in it anymore because he's depressed, which sets up a really, really great tension for a horror film. A guy who's not even interested in the ghost haunting anymore. He then searches for some spicy gay content to yank ham to, but when he finds a video that he wants to watch, it turns into a live stream of himself. Again, something that feels completely unnecessary. There was no reason behind this. It doesn't come up again. It doesn't mean anything. I don't know why they've done this. But then he goes on his phone and he sees his follow account has bloody exploded, and that now he's internet famous, woohoo. That night, David drags Adam out of bed for a little adventure. This is similar to something that Adam wrote, but instead of taking him to an abandoned warehouse, David takes him to the 90s computer basement. We see here David being exposed to some dark internet materials, and then his dad is like, get off the computer. You have too much time on the computer. And then David has the measured response of killing him. He chokes him to death with a cable, and then the mother comes in and sees, and then bashes David's head with a computer. And I feel bashed over the head with the metaphor. In the original story, I believe it was a shelf that was pushed on David. Again, this whole computer aspect has been added in by the filmmakers. Adam wakes up from this dangling out the window, which makes me question what the point is of the bloody 3 questions thing. It looks like David's gotta do a pretty good job at killing him without it. Finally at work, Adam draws David, which, it's a weird note, but that is one of the first things that he did in the original story. Justin Long takes Adam into his office to talk about the Dear David story. He wants to know what's going to happen next, how it's going to end, and also brings up the proposal of like maybe they could make it into a movie. Honestly, this whole part feels like a very real conversation that happened. So if we look at it with the frame of a large company taking a small creator's work and then incorporating it in the film, it feels bad, man. Adam then hires a medium who suggests that David may not be as he appears to be. And then later that night, he is contacted by an internet sleuth who specializes in ghosts, and this whole bit's got me wondering if they were just going to do one scene after another, why wouldn't they just consolidate these 2 characters? It feels very rushed, kind of like they maybe cut some stuff out here, or maybe there was some reshoots or something. But the internet sleuth somehow determines that the woman that Adam Ellis saw was a woman named Loopy Linda.
A boy with a caved in head, and there's a woman, she has like long straggly hair. It's like
Loopy Linda.
Loopy Linda.
Loopy Linda is famous on the internet, especially on the deep web, for being a mental patient. Like, she's just famous because she's in a mental hospital. I don't know. If you can't tell, at this point here in the movie, we have completely left the territory of the original content, so that's probably why everything at this point feels a little rushed and random. Anyway, this woman, Loopy Linda, supposedly killed her husband and then put her son in a coma. Ooh, it's a little familiar from a little thing that we just saw. And damn, oh my god, a coma? That's very reminiscent of what Justin Long talked about earlier in the film, about how that guy who had been in a coma for 21 years just woke up from a coma. Adam then tweets about Loopy Linda for some reason, who is a mental patient who, you know, committed die to themselves. I don't know if you should have tweeted about that. And then goes to the hospital to investigate David. They don't give him the answers he wants, so he breaks into a computer and sees that David's body is missing. Oh yeah, he died. He woke up from the coma and then he died a couple days later. But yeah, his body is missing and he finds the doctor's address. Now, because David was an adult when he died, guys, that makes the whole thing about him making the Grindr account not weird, because he was an adult. Sure, his lived experience was that of a child, but you know, don't even worry about that. That's just semantics. Forget about it. This is the only reason I could think of why they made the ghost of the kid an adult, because I think the ghost of a kid is creepier, but I don't know. That's just me. Anyway, he breaks into the doctor's home and then sees some creepy pictures that David made, and then he sees a ghost hanging from the ceiling. I don't know if the ghost is meant to be Linda or the doctor. I've got no idea. Adam then runs home and sees David on the TV, and then David on the TV possesses Adam kind of to make him hurt himself with a knife. Yet the next day, Adam feels well enough to go to work, and at this point, he's completely losing it. This by far is my favorite scene in the film. It is a little dark. Norris wants Adam to read their latest list that they're working on because Adam is very good with relatable content. And Norris wants to see if it's relatable. And when Adam reads the title of the list article, it says, Top 10 Reasons to... at work. I was absolutely flabbergasted when I saw this. I never saw this coming for a second. Makers of this film should just make a dark comedy or something like that. They needed to do their own original work. I have no idea how the higher-ups at BuzzFeed could have possibly ever signed off on this. Anyway, so Adam gets sent home indefinitely.
Look! No, it didn't say that.
Go back to work. Stop filming. But good instincts.
David uses some kind of AI voice generator to get all Adam's friends just to hate him now. Adam starts drawing his comics, but he's freaking the hell out. David's messing around with the computer, and Adam is just pushed over the edge when David deletes the thing he was working on Photoshop and asks his third question.
David, what the fuck did you do? That was 3 questions.
Now, if the film hadn't lost you at this point and you were thinking, this actually doesn't seem too bad, well, first of all, I'm surprised that you think that, but I think this next part will really take you out of it. A video game loads up on the computer. David comes out of the shadows wearing a mask, holding a video game controller, and proceeds to control Adam like a video game. If you're thinking that this feels completely out of the blue, you're right. There were some very minor references to video games before this. Earlier in the film, there's like a 2-second bit where Adam is playing a video game, and also as a child, he had an imaginary friend called Link, but that's kind of where the video game's references end here. So there's 2 reasons as to why I think that they potentially have done this. The first being, computers equal video games. That's it. Reason number 2. The other way that I looked at it, and this was only on the second viewing, is that the original work of Dear David, or the Twitter thread, could be viewed as like an ARG game. Because it was played out in real time and people could engage with it and control it to a degree. But also I do see that this connection is a little bit of a stretch here. If you've watched the film and could tell me why they've done this, I would be very appreciative. But yeah, David Mario Karts him into the oven and then sets him on fire. Adam wakes up in the ghoul basement and sees that, oh my god, David was an artist, just like him, and both their mothers' names were Martha. There's a whole bit here where he's confronted by like all 4 other characters in the film. They speak some mean truths to him, which is very reminiscent of the comments he was receiving earlier in the film, which I think is a bit weird. Are they implying that the hate he gets here is deserved? Or is this just like David being evil and comparing those 2 things together to make him feel worse? I don't know. I don't know if the filmmakers are evil or the character of David is.
You never ask about my day.
You never call me back. And you never say I love you.
But he determines that he is not alone in the world. He's got mates, that he is enough, and he deserves to live. And he wakes up just in the nick of time to not be eaten by a ghost. So I guess the whole bit of him burning to death in the oven wasn't real. But the apartment is still on fire. He tries to escape, but he gets thrown back because the ghost is telekinetic. He can't bloody escape. But don't worry though, because he overpowers the ghost and then bashes it to death with the internet modem. And I feel beaten to death by the metaphor. Adam is pulled to safety by his ex and his best friend. I guess they still like him. Finally says, I love you, and they believe him about the ghost. Adam is improved as a person. It's all a happy ending. Just kidding. Adam is possessed by David. He was possessed the whole time. He didn't learn a lesson. He's still a bad guy. He's possessed by the ghost that he beat to death. Nothing meant anything. And rather than ending the film on a bang, they decide to end it on a whimper, where we have to watch this 2-minute long scene of this woman, one of Adam's main critics, live streaming, where Dear David comes into a chat and she's taunting it and stuff, and she asks the 3 questions, and then David instantly beats her to death. It's a scene very reminiscent of 2014 film Unfriended. It's very reminiscent of that. In a lot of respects, the whole film is. This whole ending portion of the film felt like the weakest aspect to me overall. I'm sure this has something to do with the original story never getting a proper ending. It seems to me that if they fought harder to keep Adam Ellis on board, either working at BuzzFeed or even just having any part of the production of this film, maybe the ending would have been better. Maybe the film as a whole would have been better. In my opinion, if they focused more on the original story that he created rather than doing this whole take on his personal life and interactions on Twitter and David being an internet ghost, I think it would have made for more of an engaging story, in the same way that his audience was already engaged in 2017. I will say, however, that the odds for this film were always stacked against it being good. It also does leave a sour taste in my mouth, the way that the creator, whether you like him or not, was portrayed as a villain in his own work by a company that he used to work for. Maybe that's just me. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Also, make sure to hit like on this video, because otherwise if you don't, David's gonna get you. That's right, that's the secret fourth rule. That's the secret other rule that they didn't tell you in the film, but lucky you're here, I'm telling you now. You like it or he'll get you. The bloody ghost will make you a Grindr account if you don't subscribe. Thanks for sticking around though, I really do genuinely appreciate it. Thank you, bye.